The biggest Big 12 basketball game of the weekend featured Texas Tech and BYU. That sounds familiar, right? Same story with the biggest football games of the year in the Big 12. And in a new era that's heading more and more toward uncapped revenue sharing, uncapped spending, is anyone ever going to catch these two again in the Big 12? Will anyone ever catch Texas Tech and BYU again in the Big 12? This could be the league's long-term future that we are looking at. BYU was playing a great game there about 2/3 of the way through in Lubbock. It all went to hell. Crazy run. What was a 30-6 run that Texas Tech had to put it away in United Supermarkets Arena? That is a you-know-what of a place to play if you're going in there with a jacked house, which is what you're getting most of the time these days. So Godspeed to anybody trying to close out a win there in a big game like that. But that to me is like, it was just another one of those, hey, we're highlighting on the schedule the biggest games in the league this year, basically always involve right now Texas Tech and BYU, right? So what does this mean? What does this mean? I felt like this was such an appropriate tie-in between what happened this weekend and where things appear to be going long-term, when you've got the Miami, Ohio State, and Notre Dame athletic directors saying we need to get rid of the limit on how much money we can pay student athletes. I also thought of it when I saw this tweet come on my timeline, hit the timeline this weekend, which this will be frustrating in a way to BYU fans, but it's really meant to just highlight both programs here. But look at this. BYU this year, 28-4 in football and men's basketball, which, I mean, take a bow. BYU, 28-4. But 3 of those losses are against Texas Tech. It shows you how often those two are going up against each other as the best programs in the Big 12. But boy, 3 losses against Tech has to be. It's starting to dig at you. Is this turning into now a rivalry, though? There are a lot of ways you can take this. You've got these two teams playing each other all the time with huge stakes and a lot on the line. Does this now become the Big 12's preeminent rivalry? And is it just going to be based on the fact that these are the best teams that the Big 12 typically has to offer? Now, I know basketball, basketball is a bit of a different story there, right? Come on. Basketball is a bit of a different story. Lots of other good teams in the Big 12. Totally understand that. Arizona fans, I don't need you running to the comments. But when you take the totality of these two combined athletic departments, football and men's basketball anyway, I know that's not the whole athletic department, but they are the two main revenue sports that we have. It's hard to see anybody really catching these two right now. Tech itself, by the way, is 26-6 in football and men's basketball this year. So Texas Tech is number 1 with a bullet, I would say, right now in terms of athletic departments in the Big 12, and number 1 with a bullet, meaning like they have moved up there emphatically and fast. It has happened fast, and they are there. Football, no end really in sight of the talent, at least, that's coming into the program. And basketball has been there for a while. I mean, we're going back to the Chris Beard days. Like the basketball program, that's a well-established thing. Grant McCasland is now a well-established commodity as a men's basketball coach. It's hard to see that really going anywhere, assuming that he stays as the head coach. And this is where it's not all just about money. That is certainly a big part of it, but it's also about having good coaches and good people in place. And Texas Tech has a combination of both. There definitely seems to be a level of like mutual respect between the two programs right now. I can see that coming across on social media and the interactions that everybody has there and how many times they're meeting in games with huge stakes. But does that go beyond like, hey, we're both just having a great year here? Is it just everybody involved here can kind of sense like this is the way it's taking shape? Like we are going to be the leaders of this new league where things are at right now. Here would be my case. And by the way, subscribe to the channel, please. Pushing for 30K subs. Getting close. Totally free. Appreciate everybody who does that. Both programs are keeping great coaches. There is good retention going on here. Kalani Sitake and Joey McGuire both signed long-term deals to stay on this year. It doesn't seem like Grant McCasland or Kevin Young are going anywhere either. I mean, never say never, but seems like all the coaches are in a pretty good spot here and all are really established as some of, if not the best in the league. We know about the financial commitment. Tech spent $28 million on a football roster this year. then you had Cody Campbell doubling down on that, like with his tweet from after the season the other day saying like, hey, we're going to double down, literally said double down on resources, everything that we are giving the programs right now. BYU this offseason, I guess it wasn't even totally the offseason. It happened before the Big 12 championship game, but BYU stepped up with an extra $10 to $15 million above the rev-share cap to give Kalani Sitake. Financial commitment clearly is being made by BYU, by that university, which is a big deal considering the history of that university and the other governing bodies involved there that other schools are not dealing with. And now we're only moving more and more toward an environment that favors the money and leverages the money more and more and more and more. Okay. So it's everything that if you've been watching the live show, I've talked about already on the show. Uncapped spending coming potentially, even if it's, hey, you're just going to silo down and only play teams in your conference. It feels like that will just accentuate even more like the Texas Tech and BYU domination here if they're going to continue to do this every year. If you're only getting Big 12 v Big 12 games, and then every year it's like, all right, well, then the one that you've got to look forward to is BYU Texas Tech every single year. If we're not going to get BYU Notre Dame in the non-con, and it's just going to get, BYU Texas Tech every single year, you don't have the ability to go out and play Big Ten or SEC teams, then I feel like that'll put even more of a spotlight on what's going on in the league. And it brings to mind a question that I asked you guys. I mean, I feel like I basically asked this question publicly recently to my audience. That was just simply, who wins more Big 12 football titles over the next 5 years? I gave you Texas Tech or the field. So this wasn't even Texas Tech and BYU or the field. This is just Texas Tech or the field. Who wins more Big 12 football titles over the next 5 years? And we've got Texas Tech basically 60-40. We're almost right at 60-40 here for the Red Raiders. So it seems like you guys think we're headed this way anyway. If I included BYU, like what would that number be? What would that number get to if we're going to throw the Cougars in there too? Do we get to like a 70-30 then, that most people think those two will win the majority of Big 12 titles over the next 5 years? I mean, I gotta admit, if you gave me that choice right now, I'd sure lock in with that. With Texas Tech and BYU over the field 100% at this point. And remember how fast it is. Crazy how fast this has changed. So I suppose this does open up the possibility that things could change very quickly, because the point that I'm about to make is like year ago, like if I were sitting here on January of last year, I mean, I remember having some conversations about like looking forward and trying to project, all right, who's going to run the league. But we were having a lot of convos about Arizona State because Kenny Dillingham was so young and stuck around. And it was like, hey, well, Texas Tech and BYU, it does look like they're going to have a bunch of resources to throw at this, but we didn't have proof of concept on Tech yet and what that was actually going to look like. I picked Texas Tech like 5th in my Big 12 preseason poll this year, which obviously seems ridiculous now, but at the time that, the coaches picked K-State and Iowa State to play for the Big 12 championship, right? When Brett McMurphy pulled them. Nobody was really thinking at this time, like, yeah, Texas Tech and BYU, that's going to be it. But it's changed because the way the environment has changed, the way those schools have stepped up to keep their coaches and everybody around, and then what we actually saw on the field for a second straight year from BYU and from Texas Tech for the first time around. So, like, it's gotten there in a hurry. And it feels like you better get used to this if you are a Big 12 fan. If you're watching live, ignore this. But if you're watching the clipped version for more on why BYU is absolutely built for this right now, click this video.